Well, I'll mention two more things, one of which I covered in my earlier congestion relief plan, which is that when it comes to the kind of construction of buildings and so on, like we see right here, we have to close fewer lanes for that. I mean, in a lot of cities, they just don't allow that to happen, and I think we have to be much stricter and much more disciplined about when we do not or do allow lanes to be closed at all for construction.
Well, how do you decide how much is too much?
Well, I mean, I think when it comes to a street like Adelaide Street right behind me, where it seems there's been at least one lane of traffic closed for years, I think that's too much. And I think we have to sort of work with the construction industry to do better than that. I think that it's about criteria, it's about management, it's about attitude and a determination to actually make a difference. Like a lot of things, Mayor Ford talked a good game on a lot of things and then didn't actually do anything about it. That's a failure of leadership, and I intend to provide better and stronger leadership and be more personally involved in making sure that we change things. We cannot go on the way we've been doing it. Today I will lay out a 6-point plan to battle traffic congestion. It is a plan that will deliver some immediate action and will bring real relief in the next few weeks and months while we get on at the same time with building transit. I will work to bring into line the often insensitive and wrong-headed way we approach construction on our city streets. To begin, I will push to establish more stringent criteria and higher fees for the closure of lanes and boulevards to accommodate private development projects. By attaching a real price to closing down lanes of traffic, I believe we will significantly reduce the number of lanes of traffic that we have to close and the length of time those lanes are closed, if in fact they are at all. Finances aside, working with developers, I want to reduce the number of instances in which we have lanes closed at all. Other cities, in a much smaller number of cases, allow this to happen, and I think we have to move in the direction of having fewer lanes closed for private development projects, let alone how much it costs to keep them closed. But I do believe all of this will make a difference, and we will receive a report at Councillor Robinson's Public Works and Infrastructure Committee on this issue in February. And I look forward to working with Councillor Robinson on all of this, but in particular on this point, to make sure we do a much better job of having things move faster in terms of reopening lanes of traffic, or better still, not closing them to begin with to accommodate private construction. And last week at City Council, I successfully moved that City Council send 3 items back to City staff for more work. With all 3 items, city staff were recommending lane and sidewalk closures in the downtown core for purposes of facilitating private development, usually new residential condominiums. The recommendations would have allowed these latest condo developments to erect construction staging areas on public roadways and sidewalks. 2 of the closures, one on Richmond and the other on Bathurst right behind me here, proposed closing a lane of traffic for 2 years, 2 entire years. The third one, also on Richmond Street to the east, proposed a lane closure for 3 years. 3 years. It doesn't matter how you get around the city, whether you are a pedestrian, a cyclist, a transit user, or a driver, you would be affected by these closures for a very long period of time. In fact, for an unacceptably long period of time. And I drew a line at this council meeting where I held these 3 items because I wanted to register the fact that it is time we started to place a much greater emphasis on the broader public interest when it comes to these kinds of decisions. So we did the right thing at council last week, but it's just a beginning. First, the good news with a serious point attached to it. The fact that I held the proposed closure here at Bathurst and Front up at council, together with the efforts of Councillor Cressy and the developer working together, allowed us to modify their request and significantly reduce the disruption. So what you can see behind me here is now they are closing only a small part of the curb lane, but it will still allow 2 lanes of traffic to be operating in this area, whereas the original proposal for a period of years would have allowed only 1 lane of traffic shared with a streetcar to move by this place. And you can imagine the kind of bottleneck that would have created. But thanks to the efforts after the hold that I put on it of the developer and Councillor Cressy and the city staff, we have worked something out. The serious point coming out of all that, it can be done. Council voted unanimously to send the other 2 closures back to our city staff and direct that they work with developers to come up with a better way to stage their tools and vehicles instead of closing a lane of traffic and sidewalks for construction for years on end, which of course has the effect of increasing congestion in the city and disrupting the residents of Toronto, including cyclists and pedestrians. So they'll be reporting back in a month on how these projects might use different means to either shorten or eliminate the closure of lanes, which also impact on sidewalks and on cyclists. Now, I should point out to you that notwithstanding what happened at City Council last week at the Richmond Street West address, and we're not exactly sure of the circumstances that led to this in terms of the interaction with our city staff, the hoarding already went up, closing down a portion of the lane of traffic. And we'll have to make sure of what happened there in terms of what city staff may have said could or should be done before council approval. But I want it to be understood very clearly by the people inside the City Hall and outside the City Hall that the council approval of these kinds of things going forward is not going to be a rubber stamp. It never should have been, but now we've established the precedent, and we will be going forward looking at each of these very carefully, and we'll be making sure people understand that approval is not given until approval is given. And in this case, as I say, I'm not happy about the fact that the hoarding went up when, in fact, council did not give the approval. I will point out something that I've mentioned before, which is that other major cities like New York don't allow developers to close a lane of traffic because it is too disruptive for the orderly functioning of the city. And I think we have to head in the same direction so that no closure or very short closures become the rule rather than the exception. Since I took office, I've been committed to getting Toronto moving because I know people want to be on time for work or for school or just to get home sooner to their families. It's like a lot of things. Mayor Ford talked a good game on a lot of things and then didn't actually do anything about it. That's a failure of leadership, and I intend to provide better and stronger leadership and be more personally involved in making sure that we change things. We cannot go on the way we've been doing it.